I'm John Stahl-Wert, and along with my colleagues at Center for Serving Leadership, we're committed to supporting and encouraging leaders around the world to make the biggest possible positive impact they can through their leadership. I watch the leadership growth path of men and women over the years. And just this past week, I was over in an adjacent state to where I live, meeting with a group of owners and leaders from multiple industries. And there was a young woman there, early 20s, whose mom and dad founded a fantastic organic farm. They raise vegetables and they raise various protein, and they do it organically, and they do it in a way that addresses the kind of health needs people have. And so she was born into this. She and her sister's husband are in league with mom and dad in running this company, and they have a bunch of staff. And after we spent some time together, she came up to me and she said, everybody that works for me is way older than me, and I'm really new at this, and it feels awkward to be in charge when I'm so young, and the people that answer to me know a lot more than I do. And in that little presentation, she captured a common struggle that leaders have. It's frequently referred to as the impostor syndrome. The impostor syndrome is when we're in a place where we suspect that we don't know enough and we haven't had enough experience, and perhaps we aren't deserving enough. And you can make that list a lot longer if you want to deserve or to justify or to legitimize the role that we hold. And many, many leaders struggle with this. And I just want to make a couple of observations about it. First of all, let me just say that I would about 100 times out of 100 prefer that in the leadership development and growth path that a human being goes on, and everybody goes on a leadership development and growth path. There is no born good leader. On that path, I would rather have someone spend a few years struggling with an imposter syndrome than have someone be how should I put this? I'll keep it PG. Have someone be arrogant. I can think of a number of other expressions for that person, but the person who thinks they deserve it, the person who thinks they know the answers, the person who walks into the room and doesn't check with anybody because they're just overly sure of themselves and have an attitude about themselves that is superioristic. I don't want that person in leadership. I wish that person had some self-doubt, and I wish that person looked in the mirror and raised questions with themselves about themselves. But as a first point, let me just say that the imposter syndrome is fine to go through. And I'm going to give you some ideas about how to get through it, because we do need to move beyond that sense of awkwardness that this young woman shared with me. Adlai Stevenson said many, many years ago this: "It is hard to lead a cavalry charge if you think you look funny sitting on a horse." And what he was saying, in short, was if you are self-absorbed in the feeling of, I shouldn't be here, I look funny, my role doesn't look right, the people are wondering if I know what I'm doing. When we are absorbed in that kind of self-doubt and that kind of constant negative introspection, it's very difficult for us. And so the imposter syndrome is a real issue, and we need to work our way through it. Just a couple of observations about what might be at the root of an imposter syndrome. This is not a deep dive. Fundamentally, I think it's a fine problem to have for a self-aware human being, because we ought to have some questions about ourselves always. But it usually takes the form of, I'm not smart enough for this job, and I wonder if the people around me know that. I don't know enough about this job, and the people around me probably know more than I do, yet I'm the manager, I'm the supervisor, or my boss picked me. I didn't do enough to deserve this appointment. There's probably resentment around me. I know of other people who maybe thought they would be the one who is promoted, but I was promoted. And what do I do about that? I'm not old enough for this role. You get the gist. It takes a variety of those forms. And of course, what's common about all of those forms is that there is a not enough experience. I don't deserve it. I haven't earned it. I haven't learned enough. I haven't done enough. I haven't aged enough, et cetera, et cetera. So it locates into different ways we might look negatively upon ourselves. But it results in the same conclusion that there's something about who I am that if people actually understood what goes on inside my own brain, they would realize that they're working for a fraud. That's where the impostor notion comes from, and it's painful. So just a couple of words about this. Again, what I'm reflecting on is different things that people go through in the learning and development trajectory of becoming a good leader. And I don't think I ever underscore this too much. Nobody that I know who's a good leader on earth knew what they were doing when they started. And so there is always a learning and development pathway. Many people don't get around the curve of the things they must learn. They don't sort it out. And they either become not good leaders through, their own pain or anguish or bitterness or hiding or masking or maybe over drinking or whatever else happens to them, or they quit and they say, this isn't for me. Let me go back to doing, let me just do the work and not be in a role of leadership. So, couple of observations. In general, the accusations that we level against ourselves when we're in a leadership role are largely true. So I find it really helpful to square off with reality. Many of the self-accusations, or even many of the accusations other people make against us, have a decent foundation in reality. And only by trying to deny that it's true or assuming the importance of the charge, do we get leveled by it? I don't know enough. I don't know enough. Fair point. I'm not old enough. Yeah, it would be a lot better if I had 10 or 20 more years under my belt. Good point. I didn't do enough to deserve the promotion, and there's some other really good people around here who didn't get the promotion. That's true, too. Life isn't fair. I don't understand it. And go on down your list. The charges have a root and foundation. Frankly, we wouldn't be tormented by them if it was obvious that they were false. I am not worthy. Yeah, I'm not. I didn't earn it. Surely I didn't. I didn't have enough experience. I'm not smart enough, and on and on and on. The human capacity to proliferate charges against oneself is rather magnificent. And so the forms in which self-torment plays itself out inside the human brain is quite creative, quite vast. But the nature of it is quite common. So just a couple of words of encouragement or points of perspective about the business of being in leadership. Someone promoted you to it. Someone quit and there was no one else to do it. Maybe you launched something yourself and it's taken some positive momentum and you need help. And so you have people working with you, for you. We get into that position, a variety of different ways, but here's some observations. The fact that we are responsible for leadership is not fundamentally rooted in our ego. And so even though we struggle with our ego, am I valuable enough for this? or we struggle with our insufficiency. Will I be discovered to be unworthy of this? We need to push those aside. There's some more important questions. I don't think that fundamentally we can take the imposter syndrome and silence it. I think rather we have to invest focus in some other things. I think the imposter syndrome and all of its accusations and pains and the noise it produces dims. I don't think we can tell it to shut up, but we can direct ourselves to some other points of focus. First of all, I got a job to do. It matters. I'm not actually here for myself to begin with. And so even though I'm in pain, even though I'm struggling, even though I have doubts, let me remember, I got a job to do. There's a customer to serve. There's a product to build. There's a service to deliver. There's a problem to solve. There's some people to care for. There's some work to do. I got some projects to finish. I got work to do. I'm not here for me. I'm here to be in service to something. We call this work serving leadership, not because we're interested in doormat identity, like I'm just here to whatever. No, it has a very particular focus. I am here in my leadership to accomplish something that matters. And that thing that I'm seeking to accomplish is not serving myself. That thing I seek to accomplish is serving something else. Customer, colleague, employee, and process, standard, values, quality. I got something to get done. And so one point of focus that we need to step up into, remind ourselves of each day is I'm going to work today to get something done. And yes, I struggle with some things personally, but let me put my focus on the work and on the people and on the customers that I need to serve. They need me to do my job so they can do their job. Secondly, the idea that I don't know what I need to know, or I haven't had the experience that I should have had to be in charge of this, is a very good thing to get clear about, in fact, because we need to focus ourselves on the fact that other people do know what needs to be known. Other people have had the experience that is needed to get through. Other people do have the answers. A fallacy so many people struggle with in their leadership practice is that they need to be the center of everything. And frankly, that stunts goodness, and it stunts creativity, and it stunts collaboration, and it squashes the energy and the capability of others. It is not our job to know and to do and to have the background experience that's required. Our people have that. And so to focus today, every time I see something that needs attention, every time I see something that needs an answer, every time I see something that is of concern, to focus my attention on seeking the information and the expertise and the knowledge and the wisdom and the input that's needed is, in fact, my leadership practice. And so we place our focus there. We go to a colleague and say, I've just been noticing what's happening here. What are your thoughts about this? I haven't seen it before. What have you seen? Or to pull your team together and have that conversation. We bumped into this, now we bumped into it again, and there seems to be, a pattern here. And, before I bring some plans or strategies to this, which I'm still sorting out, I wonder what's on your mind, or just a simple conversation. Could you come over and share what you're seeing, share what you're thinking? You've been here longer than me. The fact that you have people who know more, who have experienced more, who have aged more, is not only not an impediment to your excellent leadership, it's an asset to it. And so go to them. Think as you approach the day, how can I engage the people around me to help be the solution to the problems that I'm dealing with? I worked for about 2 years with a young CEO many years ago who had been promoted in a time of crisis to his position of leadership. And he struggled fantastically with this issue. He knew he was very good at some stuff, and he knew that he was terrible at some stuff. And he made the assumption, and this is the wrong assumption, that the man in charge, the woman in charge, needs to know everything. And so he sweated it out, and he would go home at night and lose sleep. But that isn't all he lost. He lost extraordinary input and engagement, and actually a sense of value in his people by behaving that way. And so when we struggle with doubts, couple of things. Know that you're in the normal company of leaders who turn out to be good. Think about it for just a second. What human being do you want to hang around with who never struggles with doubts? What human being do you want to hang around with who pretends that they aren't human, to say it in a much simpler form? When we struggle with doubts about our leadership, know this. You are exactly in the place that you ought to be to become a good leader. Know this, when you are going to your job site or to your team or to your office to begin a day of work and you're feeling all of those things, remind yourself, I have something to serve here today. And, it's not unlike the struggles we have in every aspect of our life. We have to bring ourselves out of ourselves to remember that we're here for others, we're here for people, we're here for responsibilities. We've got to do something. Set yourself to that task. And when you are overwhelmed by the realization that there's stuff that other people know better or more, or with greater experience, or with more brains, or whatever that is, know that that's exactly what you want. Do you really want to be the smartest person in the room? That is actually that's a tragic place to be. You want to be in a room with people that bring all kinds of capabilities to you that you don't have. That's exactly what you want. And so set yourself in the service of lifting out, calling out, shining a light on, appreciating, asking for, valuing what others bring, precisely because you don't have it. That's the nature of teamwork. That's how greatness happens in the first place. And so I don't know who is listening to this particular word with your heart beating a little faster today. I know that imposter syndrome is real. I know that the burdens, the overwhelming pressure and pain that many leaders feel when they graduate early into their appointment is real. And I want to encourage you, the kind of struggle you're feeling or the kind of doubts that you have or the kind of questions you have are exactly the grist that helps you become extraordinary. To not have those struggles is not the right starting line. To not have those doubts is not the beginning of becoming the kind of human leader that women and men love to work for in due course, because they find in you a reflection of their own humanness that emboldens them, that encourages them. So I just want to ask you to hang in there. I know a lot of leaders who decide to bow out of the burdens of leadership, tuck themselves back into the team where they can ostensibly feel free from those burdens, and that doesn't help us. When I was a young man, I wrestled with a version of this. It wasn't the versions I've talked about per se. I just really preferred not to be in charge. I preferred to be one of the brothers in my family, one of the boys on the team, one of the pack. I preferred that. And so it was a discomfort to be asked to step up. Didn't want to, didn't like to. my version of that was I didn't like feeling separated. I wanted to be aligned, and I didn't want to deal with what others thought of me when I was responsible and so forth. And so again and again, what I did, and this started when I was a boy, because teachers and others would say, John, why don't you do that? Why don't you take care of that? They saw something. I didn't want them to see it, and they would ask me to step forward. I didn't want to step forward. And so I fought it. And usually I had a buddy who flew their hand in the air and volunteered. So I'll do it. And I was always relieved when they did, all the way up through high school, all the way through college, and into the beginning of my work career when I was in my early 20s. Someone else would say, well, I'll do it. And my thought was, that's fantastic. You do it. And I almost always regretted it, because those young people who give that project to me were absorbed in too much arrogance, and they were absorbed in too much self, and they were perhaps compensating for things, but they were absorbed in too much confidence, and they didn't have their eyes on the others, and they didn't have their ears open to the others, and they didn't pay attention to the space other people needed. And they made it about themselves, and they pushed some people out, and they caused everybody to kind of circle around them like they were the sun, and everyone else was the planets. And I hated it. I watched that, my own version of this, and I thought again and again, I hated the idea of accepting the leadership burden, but I hate this more. And that is what I want you to consider. You are in pain, you are struggling, you suffer these things, you have these doubts. Okay, that's a burden you're bearing, and I respect it. But consider the impact of the loss of you to the people that your team has gathered to serve, or to the purpose that your enterprise or your nonprofit or your church or your business is called to serve, or to the goodness that you're seeking. Consider the burden, the pain of the loss of your leadership in terms of things that really matter. And suck it up, take a deep breath, get up on the horse, feel that moment of, boy, I think I look funny up here. But notice there's a mission to serve. Notice there's some people looking for direction. And put your focus on them, put your focus on the mission, and lead the charge.
For more information about the Center for Serving Leadership, visit our website at centerforservingleadership.com.